Welcome to the Fast Lane. Nik Miles is our auto expert. So drop it into gear. You've got a green flag. Here's Nik.
Welcome to this week's show. It's Nik and Megan this week on our auto expert. Megan, what have you been up to? Like, you've been in Mexico.
Yeah, I've been all over the place. But yeah, I was just in Quintana Roo, which is Cancun, Playa del Carmen.
There's a place called Quintana Roo.
Quintana Roo.
Quintana Roo.
But it's Cancun.
Is
Cozumel.
it? Quintana Roo sounds like a character out of a Disney movie.
It also sounds like a state in Mexico.
Roo.
God.
I'm Quintana Roo. I'm a peacock and I'm very, very posh.
You're a confused person.
I am. What's Quintana Roo famous for?
Cancun.
Right. So I saw pictures of your two sons in an ATV. One of the sons looked like he was about to die. The other one had a big smile on his face.
Yeah. So we did all adventure stuff while we were down there. So we went to this really cool place called Silvatica, and it's like an adrenaline. You're doing crazy zip lines, and part of it was they would let you ride ATVs through this what they call their mud track. And, I mean, they are regulating you, but we could really go for it. And they wouldn't let us on ATVs, but they would as long as you're 18, they would let you drive that.
Look, it was a quad. It was like,
It was like a dune buggy.
Yeah. And so more of it is still an ATV, but it's more like a car.
It was so great, though, because the kids have never really had an off-roading experience with me before. So it was neat to watch Noah hang because, man, he was really going for it. I mean, he was drifting. Like, he did really good. And of course, Jonah's just hanging on, screaming. I mean... And then Eden was riding with me, and she's just like, slow down.
Oh,
like,
she's the scaredy cat.
She hated it.
Really?
She didn't hate it, but she's just like, are you crazy?
Yeah,
So,
well, you are crazy, and but they know that.
Yeah,
You're the only mom that kids have to give a talking to.
That's probably true, actually. And then a couple days later, we got to kind of do a similar thing again, which I haven't posted any of the footage for that, but we got to off-road Jeeps at a place called Explore. And again, so we got to go through one track, and it was really cool. But then there's a longer track, so then we got to do even more. And I think that ended up being one of Noah's favorite things.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a 18-year-old boy. They tend to like things with gas pedals and loud and muddy. But
Eden had seen video footage of when I was at Explore last year without her, and on the course there was some water, and I thought it's going to be super shallow, so I just plowed into it, and of course. It just comes up. It completely covers us. Like, I'm covered. I'm soaking wet in mud, head to toe, like, because it was very deep, and I didn't realize it. So every time we were about to hit water, she's like, no, Mom, no. Like,
Is there pictures of that? You covered in mud?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I can't wait to see
Well,
that.
I have a picture of, like, this huge, like, it looks like a wave coming over the car, so.
It sounds like it. And your kids are going to, how are they ever going to live without you, because when they're grown up and they have to do adult things, they can't go and goof off in Cancun for the week with their mom.
That's true.
It's a school week. Oh, is it spring break?
It was spring break. Yeah, we spent spring break down there doing different stuff. So.
Oh, at least that's nice.
Yeah, it was super fun. Like I said, we did a ton of adventure stuff. So.
If we want to see some of that stuff that you wrote and some of the pictures and stuff, where am I going to go to do that?
Go to mommytravels.net.
All right. That sounds like fun. Have you found your son a car yet?
No, so I've come super close. I've narrowed it down, I think, to probably 2. And so I'm either getting him the brand new Nissan Rogue with the ProPilot technology.
Which is what you always wanted, isn't it? That's what you wanted to get him. You've been saying that for a long time. As
soon as I drove that car just a few months before it was released to the public, I think. And, man, I was super impressed. I mean, as soon as I drove it, I was like, this is it. But since then, Subaru has come out with some new technology on their Forester.
Yeah.
And I have not driven that car yet.
Oh.
So I need to go test drive it.
I'm thinking about putting my dad in a Forester because as he gets older, he's not as sharp as he used to be. He used to be like the totally sharpest guy on the planet. And he's not, his reaction times aren't as quick and this sort of thing. And so I constantly worry about him driving, and I feel like a Forester is something that he's gonna, one of the things it has is it has that eyesight. Mm-hmm. It has facial recognition. It can see if you're, not paying attention to the road and that sort of thing. And it also tells you when the car in front of you pulls away. And my dad's the sort of guy where he has to look at me when he talks to me because his hearing isn't as good. So he turns to face me when I'm a passenger, usually at a stoplight. But the car in front of him pulls away, and I'm like, Dad, dead. Unlike my other half, it's like the light changed. I says I was watching it. Unfortunately, I can't accelerate that fast away from the light.
You know what's funny about like when you're at a stoplight?
Yeah.
One time I was riding in the car and I happened to have a firefighter in the car and a police officer, and they said that
There's a whole story there somewhere, but we'll save it.
They always wait for someone else to go first because they said the worst accidents they ever see are the people that take off right away at the stoplight and somebody runs it and just plows into them.
Yeah.
So, and ever since then, I kind of sit there and I'm like, I kind of wait for somebody else to go and then I go.
Really? That's it. I didn't know that.
Plus, I drive like an old lady, so whatever.
I'll have to call my friend James Musin from Gresham Pleats.
Verify this information.
Yeah, well, and just double check that he does the same thing. Yeah, I've driven with him. He's a great driver. We had a lot of fun.
I guess I could give a shout out to him. They're Portland people.
All right. Oh, they are?
Yeah, John Durr, he works at the Portland Fire Department, and Tom Worthy, he's Oregon State Police. All
right. Well, at least they must know what they're doing. So back to the Sun car thing. So you're thinking about the Forester, but you have another huge problem, don't you? Getting your ex on board with this.
Yes, that is an ongoing issue. So because I want him to pay for half of the car.
Right.
And I maybe know a little bit more about cars than
that must be
the other one.
That must be very difficult for your ex because you're a car person and you're on a car radio show and you do test drives and you drive cars in Mexico and yet and
I don't want to be a know-it-all, but I know what I'm talking about.
I don't want to be a know-it-all, but I am a know-it-all.
Just to be clear, I know 200% more than you.
And you're single, right?
I am single, yeah. I don't know why. What could it be?
Hi, honey, I love you. And you're stupid.
See ya.
So, when's the big decision? Because Noah just turned 18, your son.
Yes. So I'm trying to make a decision. So I have
Tax
8 days
day.
left.
You're trying to make a decision as soon as possible.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Honestly, I would have made the decision a couple weeks ago, but like I said, the other one's not on board yet, the other parent. And so we'll see how that goes. You know what's super weird though?
What?
I just, I talked to the dealership. I'm the one that picked out the car. I'm the one that knows about all the technology.
Yeah.
But then I sent my ex-husband down there to check it out.
Yeah.
And who do you think they want to talk to now?
Him.
Yep.
Because he's an easy mark.
And all of a sudden, I'm cut out of the conversation. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. I'm the primary decision maker here. Like, you could just very, you know what I do? I'm super honest with dealers. They much prefer it that way. You say, by the way, if you talk to my husband, you're not getting anywhere because I'm the decision maker. 80% of cars in America are bought on the permission of a woman. Did you know that? I didn't, but it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Probably time for us to take a break. We'll be right back.
Keep listening. More of Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles is coming up. Start your engines and you're off. Back to Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles.
Well, if you watch YouTube videos and entertained by car videos, you'll know that the biggest channel on YouTube for trucks is the Fast Lane truck, or the Fast Lane car stroke truck. Roman Mica is the purveyor of all things big truck. Roman, welcome to the show. You have your annual awards, the Golden Hitch Awards, and they have become quite an industry standard, haven't they?
Yeah, we've kind of taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, and we do some really great truck testing here in Colorado. We're lucky enough to live in a place with big mountains and good roads, so we get to take trucks and load them up as heavy as they'll go and drive them up to the top of the Eisenhower Tunnel and see how they tow.
A lot of truck awards are really people who have no idea about trucks, who get in them, drive them around a course for 20 minutes, and then decide whether it should be the truck of the year. And with you, it's much more of a mathematical game, isn't it?
Yeah, we pride ourselves on what we call, real-world testing and real-world reviews. So we actually go out and use the trucks the way that truck buyers use them. So obviously, trucks for many people aren't just transportation, they're tools, right? The biggest tool in your toolbox. And so we use them as tools, and we find out how they do, towing up big mountain grades and how they do hauling heavy loads down big mountain grades. And that's kind of the ultimate test of a truck, because we're starting at, 9,000 feet above sea level, so that stresses out the engine. And we tow all the way up to about 12,000 feet above sea level. So I don't think there's a tougher truck towing test than the one that we do, at least.
The interesting thing is, too, trucks are used to be just work vehicles, but as, I guess, time has evolved, families are using them as their general everyday workday vehicle. The Ram 1500, perfect example of that. They have made the interior something along the kin to a luxury car on the inside. Trucks sort of evolving as time goes on.
America, 1 out of 4 trucks is sold in Texas. And in Texas, the truck has long been kind of the family, literally, truckster, right? It's been the vehicle you take to church on Sunday, you take to work on Monday. And that has become more so throughout the entire country. And I think that's because out of all the vehicles that we make in America, the one that's still truly American is the pickup truck, right? We've kind of lost, to some extent, luxury cars to the Germans. We've lost economy car, at least the leading economy cars, to the Japanese. But nobody does trucks like we do.
Interesting enough, Megan, I noted that you drive a minivan, not a truck, and you're from Texas.
I know. It makes me really sad every day. I try to visualize myself in a truck.
You do? When you're in your minivan?
Yes.
Okay, that could end badly.
That way I feel like less of a loser.
Megan, you could easily get a truck that seats 6, right? You could throw your kids in there.
It's funny that you say that. I actually looked at that truck.
The Ram 1500?
Yeah.
And what? You're still driving a minivan. What happened?
I think there's a really good chance that I'll buy a truck. I know I'd like to put Noah in a truck, but they just don't quite have the safety features that I want yet.
Yeah. Trucks, a lot of times, Roman, are exempt from the safety features and fuel economy that cars are exempt from, or not exempt from, right? Here's
what happened. I had very small children. I had 3 children in car seats at the same time. Do you know how difficult it is to put a car seat in a truck?
No.
Well, of course you don't.
Anyway. I don't have kids. I have dogs. It's easy to put a dog harness in a truck.
Megan, it depends if you're putting them in the cab or in the bed, I guess.
Yeah, so you should have put them in the bed.
Put them in the back.
Put bungee cords in the...
That's illegal, but...
Actually, she makes a good point, While pickup trucks are great for hauling and towing, a minivan is still much easier for moving kids and animals and such around. But it's getting better. Today's truck has probably many of the safety features that most modern cars have now. They're quickly catching up. Things like blind spot monitoring, all that stuff is coming to trucks because people are using them as family trucksters, and they are demanding it, just like Megan said.
Yeah, and it's really nice to see them add those features. I know if I did move back to Texas, I probably would either buy a truck or a very large SUV, just because that is the car of choice for most of the state. And just imagine if you got hit and you were in a small car.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work. I get it. Roman, where are you in the Golden Hitch Awards testing for this year?
Well, we're done, Nick. We just did our awards. You're calling it a perfect time. So
who won?
We did all of them. I'll tell you, we ran all of the full-size trucks. Those are the 1-tons, right? So we're talking about the most popular trucks in the land, and those include the Toyota Tundra, the Nissan Titan, the Ram 1500, the Ford F-150, and, of course, the Chevy Silverado. And after all of our testing, which was really significant, on the world's toughest towing test, the Ram 1500 took it this year.
Which is interesting because it comes on the breaking news that Ram now are the second best-selling vehicle, period, in America.
Aren't they being recalled?
Yeah. They caught up to Ford. They caught up to Chevy and surpassed them. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and are you surprised that Ram is now the second best-selling vehicle in North America?
No, those guys have always been scrappy, and they've always done kind of the most with the least amount of money. And there's 2 things that happen there. The interior on the new Rams is, oh my gosh, it's world class. They've really upped the game. You sit in that thing, and you could be sitting in any luxury car that produced, right? They've added a huge 12-inch screen, so you kind of feel like you've got the latest tech. And they've really made the truck much more comfortable and much more luxurious. It's got this massive sunroof. And they've kept, the thing that made it a good truck. They still have the Hemi, so it still tows really well. It still hauls really well. And Chevy's had some missteps recently. Their designs have been, let's call it controversial.
No, all right. I like the way you're going with that, but everyone knows what you really mean, Roman. And then Ford has been, sort of the number one truck for so long. They haven't really changed it a lot, have they? And because change it could be causing, buyers a problem, I guess. I
think Ford, Nick, from my experience, Ford is beyond ultra competitive. The F-150 is the truck that is basically the goose that laid the golden egg for Ford, and they know it. And they will not allow anybody to come within sniffing distance of what they're doing. So the second that they think that somebody is, upping their game, they up theirs as well. They're hyper competitive. They're in the truck market to win it. And when you look at their offerings in the F-150, they actually have 6 different powertrains that you can get in the F-150. And you compare that to Ram, they only have 2 basically. They have a V8 and a V6. Ford offers 6.
It's a lot. It's an awful lot. Interestingly enough, we both spent time on the Jeep Gladiator event together, and with all the journalists. And I know that Andre went for the Fastlane truck, but I mentioned to Jeep, why didn't they take the Gladiator, which is their new truck, and just box the back in and make a extra large SUV? And they went very quiet on me, and they said, well, we kind of have that already in the Wrangler. I says, no, this one is so much bigger and longer than Wrangler. You could easily get a third row there in the back. And they shut up a lot. Yeah. And so I started to think maybe they're doing
coming,
it.
Dude. You know that.
Yeah, but I think the Wagoneer was probably going to be a bit bigger. I think, isn't it going to be based off the 1500 more?
It's hard. We've seen some spy shots of the Wagoneer now. And they're building. I think they're building 2 different models. There's the one for China that was running around, and then of course there's the one for America coming. So they have confirmed that there will be a Wagoneer. Will be based on the 1500. I don't know. That's a good question.
I think I'm reading a lot when I talked to Scott Talon from Jeep, and he went very quiet when I mentioned it. I think I caught him off guard a little bit, and he wasn't quite ready for that. And they just sort of glossed over the whole thing. What new trucks can we expect coming up that might be in the Golden Hitch Awards next year?
Well, you actually brought up 2 things. You brought up a really good point there. So, while we don't know exactly what the Wagoneer does or won't do, we do know that the Jeep platform for the Gladiator would also be a very good platform for a Ram midsize truck, right? So Ram used to have the Dakota. It went away. And the midsize trucks right now are red hot, Nick. Ford has a new one, the Ranger. Jeep has a new one. So there's a lot of speculation that Gladiator will become the platform for a new Ram Dakota. So That one is definitely over the horizon and not that far down the road. And this year for the Gold Hitch, we're doing the heavy-duty trucks, dude.
So that means the new HDs, the Super Duties, and the 2500.
But did you do the midsize?
Exactly. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Did you test out the midsize trucks that you just mentioned?
No. Midsize trucks are all new, so we're still going to do those. And when I say this year, when we say this year, we mean the 2020 truck. So we're always working a year ahead. So we just awarded the 2019s, and now we're working on the 2020 heavy-duty trucks.
Roman, if people want to go to somewhere and see all the videos that you did in the testing, where do they go? Yeah,
check out tfltruck.com. Just type in Gold Hitch, and you'll see all of us zipping up and down Eisenhower Tunnel and testing trucks till the cows come in. So, yeah, check it out. It's a fun test, and I think people enjoy watching them.
All right. Well, how much is your fuel bill just to do the Golden Hitch Award?
It's a lot, Nick. It's going to get heavier with the heavy-duty trucks.
Roman Mica from the Fastlane Truck and the Fastlane Car. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Stay tuned. There's more to come with Nik Miles. Jump right in and put the pedal to the floor. Our auto expert with Nik Miles continues.
Welcome back to the show. I am joined on this week's show with Megan from mummytravels.net. We have been talking on and off about buying your son a car because obviously this is a big step for you as a mum. Why do you want to buy him a new car?
I want to buy a new car because of just all the new safety technology that is on the market. I mean, the stuff that has come to market in the last couple of years is just phenomenal.
Physics, you cannot overcome physics. If you buy him a big truck, a super big truck, the physics of his protection is going to be much higher.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have thought about that, but he
Gas
has
mileage.
He has a medical condition. So when I think about what I want to put him in, I'm not just thinking about him. I'm also thinking about the other drivers. So.
Oh wow.
So that's kind of a different.
You're a conscientious mom. Most people are. It's all about them, all about their kids.
Well, and as it should be. I mean, your job as a parent is to protect them, love them, raise them.
What's he doing for this car? Is he going to have any, is he going to earn money? Is he paying his insurance, his gas? Because if you get handed a free car, you've got 3 kids, you're going to be broke by the time the last one gets a driver, like 4 years when Jonah, the little one, gets a driving license.
Well, he doesn't have a job, so because he could not drive, but now he can drive, so he is looking for a job. So.
So is he going to buy his own insurance, or is he going to buy his own gas?
Oh, I'm sure he'll buy his own gas.
Right.
I don't know about insurance. I mean, he is also going to college, so.
Yeah, no, I know it's tough. It's the same time that my mum and dad, I guess they did hand me a car, but they didn't pay for any of it. They gave me the car, and that was it. It was secondhand. You said to me in the break that you were thinking about putting in a McLaren, and you had to pick me up off the floor on that one.
So I read the wildest article, and I'm trying to find it. It was basically written by another auto journalist, and he said that he was on a drive, and they were driving the McLaren through California. And the other journalist basically drove them off of a cliff, and they were airborne, and they both walked away without injuries.
Yeah, well, I guess it just tends to be how big the cliff is, though, isn't it?
Well, they said it had more to do with the car because I guess they make the Formula One race cars. Is that true?
Yep.
And so they essentially made this cavity. I don't know what to call it that the race car driver sits in. What would you call that?
The cabin.
The cabin, okay. Yeah. And that their cabin is just phenomenal because they had to protect their race car driver and to put that same technology into their vehicles. And so when I read this and the guy said he walked away from this incredible accident and he had like a scrape, I was like, well, wait a minute, maybe I should get him a McLaren.
It seems that if you Google McLaren going off a cliff, there seems to be many, many situations of McLarens going off a cliff. A $385,000 McLaren being wrecked. Yes, one of the things that, of course, McLaren want to do is when they design their vehicles, they want to make sure you're protected. So if you do happen to, unfortunately, go off the edge of a cliff in the car, they want the injuries to be as less as possible. I guess.
And so, I mean, with that said, if he was in a normal car, it wouldn't be able to go so fast that you might accidentally drive yourself off of a cliff.
All right, let's just put some things in perspective here for you, Megan. You know the starting price of 720S?
Like $215,000?
$385,000.
Oh.
Just, probably more. That's actually about what my house is worth. So, that's a good start. Do you know how fast they go?
Super fast.
0 to 60 in under 2 seconds.
That's amazing. That is phenomenal. That is phenomenal.
18-year-old boy, McLaren, trouble.
I didn't say I was actually. I just kind of threw it out there. We were off the air when I said this. He's totally throwing me under the bus, people.
Well, yeah, my mum wouldn't. I got a Datsun 120Y. What was your first car, by the way?
Oh gosh, my first car was a 1986 Honda Civic hatchback with no air conditioning, and I lived in Odessa, Texas, which is West Texas, and it is so hot. That's like some sort of daily punishment to put someone in a car with no AC in West Texas.
I will tell you at the same time, someone's ringing the phone in the studio. I'm completely ignoring it. At the same time as you have a history of Hondas, don't you?
I drive a Honda now, yeah.
Is that your second Honda, or did you have more than two?
No, that's my second one. I also had a Dodge Neon.
Yes.
And I had a Ford Explorer, which is what Noah drives right now.
Right. That's not bad. The Dodge Neon, I mean, everybody had one. I think they made more of those cars than anything else.
Hey, but wait a minute. So, what was the Dodge Neon technology eventually went into the
Avenger? Avenger?
I don't know.
The Dodge Avenger was after the Neon.
I don't know. Never
Journey?
mind.
Googling it now. This is Megan throwing things out in the middle of the show.
I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah, just make it up, Megan.
Let's just switch back to travel, something I know more about.
Hey, did you have a car while you were in Mexico?
I didn't, actually. We used either public transportation or private transportation.
It always makes me smile. I have a big smile on my face when I go to Mexico and I see all the little cars that we don't get in the United States.
You know what? That's so funny that you say that because Eden said, what's a Suzuki? We saw a Suzuki down there.
Then she didn't know what it was.
No, she had never seen a Suzuki, which is surprising because I swear when we were in Thailand or Australia, we definitely saw cars that we don't normally see.
They got out of America, 5-6 years ago? Or what? You found it?
The Dodge Neon SRT.
Oh, yeah. All right. You still haven't redeemed yourself. We're going to take a break.
Stay tuned. More of Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles is on the way. Our Auto Expert continues. Here's your host, Nik Miles.
Welcome back to the show. Our Auto Expert with Nik and Megan. When you have decided what to buy Noah, will you let me test drive it?
Yeah, of course.
And maybe I could give Noah some driving tips. I think you should buy him a Jeep Trackhawk, the car I took you all guys for a ride in. Remember that one? You
Oh my, I don't know about that. I don't want him to have that kind of power.
An 18-year-old with 707 horsepower? What's wrong with you?
Gee, I don't know.
I was in Sacramento recently, and we went to test drive the new Jeep Gladiator, which is the truck. The Jeep's brand new truck, much awaited new truck. Brandon from Jeep is on the phone with us. Welcome to the show. So, have you sold? I know you sold out of the special edition that you announced, Brandon. How are the rest of the sales going?
So yeah, we sold every single one of our 4,190 Gladiator launch editions. I think we actually sold them out in less than 24 hours. And then we're going to start selling, the regular Gladiators, the Rubicons, the Overlands, the Sports. We're going to start selling those probably around May. That's when we expect them to start arriving in dealerships.
You can order them now, though, right? You can go into your Jeep dealer and order one?
You can't order them right now.
Oh.
We're not actually going to be available or open for ordering until the first week in May.
Because Scott Talon, your marketing manager from Jeep, was trying to encourage me to buy one of the special editions. And I was like, my biggest problem with buying special editions is I like to put a lot of things on these vehicles, and then you kind of deface it a little bit. Because I know the purists want it left in the same condition that you purchased, especially a special edition. And then that really speaks to what Jeep do, isn't it? Because you guys are all about doing vehicles that you can add on to and you can upfit. Since there's also 200 parts available for this at launch.
You look at Wrangler, and our Wrangler customers love to customize their vehicles. They love to personalize them, make them their own. And we expect that we're going to see a similar dynamic on Jeep Gladiator. We expect a lot of customers, as soon as they get their hands on a new Gladiator, they're going to throw a 2-inch lift on, some 35s, a winch, probably some off-road lights. We expect to see a lot of customized Gladiators out there pretty soon.
When we were test driving it on the way to the off-roading area, we had a guy in a highly customized Wrangler, a fairly old one, but very customized with a huge lift on it, do a U-ey in the road behind us and tuck in behind us. We pulled over, he pulled over, we pulled out, he pulled out. It was one of those things where they were leaning out the truck trying to take pictures of it. The new Gladiator's caused quite a stir in the Jeep community, hasn't it?
We like to say, or at least I like to say, that the new Gladiator is the most highly anticipated vehicle in the history of the automobile industry, because this is something that our diehard fans, our enthusiasts have been waiting for almost 3 decades. It's 27 years ago we last had a Jeep pickup truck in the marketplace, and that was the Jeep Comanche in 1992. And ever since Comanche went out of production, a new Jeep pickup is something our fans have just been craving for, and they haven't been shy about telling us that they want a new one.
And it's finally here, but production of this, it might be so well sought after. 24 hours to sell all of your 4,000 special edition versions. When it actually goes on sale in May, it's probably going to be a little bit like throwing chum into the ocean where there's sharks, right? It's not going to be long until the whole sea is swimming with people that want these vehicles.
Oh yeah, early on the demand is going to be incredibly high, and the very first ones that hit dealerships are going to get snapped up right away. But if you're patient, you should be able to get your hands on one, and we'll build any special order that you want.
Wait! You live in America. You do realize that where we have no patience whatsoever. The land of fast food and immediate satisfaction.
But yeah, this is something our fans have been waiting for 30 years. So if they do have a hard time, getting one down at their local dealership, hopefully they can wait just a couple more months to finally get their hands on one.
So let's talk about some of the specs for this vehicle. So first of all, on the exterior, when you look at the front, you can actually tell, if you are so inclined and such a Jeep freak, you can tell that it's the front end is actually the grille is slightly different than the Wrangler.
Correct. Very, very subtle. The face is very much a Wrangler face, but we took the 7 slots in the grille and we opened them up a little bit. We made them slightly taller, slightly wider, and then kind of the diamond mesh behind the slots, we actually open that up more. And what that does is it provides more airflow to the engine to help with cooling, to get to our 7,650 pounds max available towing on Gladiator.
Now, the sides are pretty much the same as the Gladiator until you get to the B pillar, aren't they? Same as the Wrangler. Sorry, yes.
From the B pillar forward, there's a lot in common with Wrangler, and then really once you get past the B pillar, that's where you get into all the unique Gladiator stuff. And of course, on the back end, we got a ton of new stuff going on with the rear suspension. The rear suspension, the design was actually inspired by the Ram 1500 pickup truck rear suspension. So we actually took components, the rear control arms as well as the rear track bar are sourced directly from the Ram 1500 pickup. And that just helps with our towing and our payload on Gladiator.
In the bed, I noticed there's a couple of hidden Easter eggs. You probably won't want to talk about this because I know you guys don't like to talk about the Easter eggs, but at the back of the bed there's an Easter egg. On the side of the bed is an Easter egg. Is the bed got any other cool features apart from those Easter eggs? I'm not going to tell people what they are, but Jeep's famous for their Easter eggs, hiding them around the vehicle. I found 3, by the way, Easter eggs when I was looking around the vehicle. Three really hidden ones.
You have to tell us.
No, you got to buy one. I'm not going to do it. I found one that was really bizarre. I can tell you what it was, but I'm not telling you where it is. It was a pair of flip-flops. So,
that one's really hard to find. You gotta just kind of catch it in the right light, from the right angle. Otherwise, there's no way you're gonna find it.
And I also worked out what it meant.
Okay.
But if I tell anybody what it is, it kind of ruins the whole thing of the Easter eggs, doesn't it?
Exactly.
So you have a history.
It's more fun when it's a secret, and then once you find out, it's that great aha moment, right?
Yeah, you could type it into Google now. Usually you can type stuff into Google and come up with at least the pointers in the right directions. Like the ones in the bed, you could type that into Google and you go, oh, I get it. Now you could put 2 and 2 together. When did the Easter eggs start in Jeeps?
Oh, that's a great question. We've been doing it for quite a while, at least since 2012. I can't really think of any instances before then, but, at least for the last 7-8 years, it's something that we've been, incorporating in all of our Jeep products. And some have more than others, right? Jeep Renegade has a ton of Easter eggs, and then the ones on Wrangler, the ones on Gladiator, they're fewer and they're a little bit more subtle, not quite as much in your face.
The Renegade, I think it has a spider inside the gas tank. I remember seeing that one.
Yeah, there is a spider inside the fuel door.
You mean like a picture of a spider?
Yeah, like a motif of a spider. It's not a real spider.
Why?
Because your car comes with spiders. That'd be creepy. Yeah, you buy a car from a dealer and it comes with spiders embedded into it, real ones. No, nobody wants that. Why? Well, this is the whole point. You've got to work out why. If someone tells you why it has flip-flops on the vehicle, or why it has a number written, or why it has an imprint in a certain place, or a spider in the gas tank, you've got to work out why. And you can find out. It's not too hard. But you know something? It keeps you entertained on those long journeys with 3 screaming kids in the back of the car. Seriously.
Yeah, very true.
I'm just poking at Megan because she has 3 kids. They don't scream much.
They're older now. They have on their headphones. They're listening. Who knows what they're listening to?
They only scream when you drive.
They don't even acknowledge that I'm speaking to them.
Yeah, they don't care about you.
So they're definitely not paying attention to the Easter eggs.
No. Yeah, it'll be something for them to discover in their 40s. when you're a grandmother, Megan. Anyway, let's talk about some of the other things. So the tailgate is kind of got some cool features too.
Yeah, so it's a damped aluminum 3-position tailgate. And, the 3 positions are fully down open and then fully closed up. And then there's also what we're calling a midgate position. And basically you loop the tailgate cables around some plastic cleats on the tailgate jam on the bed, and that holds the tailgate at a 45-degree angle. Because let's say you're working on a home improvement project, you need to go get some plywood or some drywall. When you slide that sheet cargo into the bed of Gladiator, it actually has to sit on top of the rear wheel wells in the forward part of the bed. But that means there's nothing to support the back end of the sheet cargo until you put the tailgate in that midgate position, and then the tailgate's actually going to support the rear of that sheet cargo, the plywood or whatever else you're hauling.
And I like that because you could always have a piece of plywood in there, and then you could go to, for instance, the home and garden store, fill the bed with soil, put the plywood on top, and put plants on top of that. And it's works like a shelf in the bed.
Yeah, true.
That's kind of a cool idea. As long as you don't pull away too fast and have all the soil spill out the back onto the road, which,
yeah, right.
knowing the way that Megan drives, that could easily happen. You just got to be a little more controlled. A lot of tech on the inside. My favorite part is this Bluetooth speaker that you have that you can actually submerge in water. So you can take the speaker out of the car and actually put it underwater for like 30 minutes and it'll still work.
Yeah, correct. And that's something brand new in the industry. Nobody else has ever done a removable Bluetooth wireless speaker. And we've got it nicely integrated into the truck. There's a docking station behind the rear seat. And when that speaker's in the docking station, it's going to recharge if needed. And then when you take it out, you can treat it just like any other Bluetooth wireless speaker, except this one, as you mentioned, is pretty darn tough and rugged. You can submerge it in 3 feet of water for up to 30 minutes. And it also has the electronics industry's highest rating for dust protection, which is pretty cool.
And then behind the rear seats, you can also actually lock the rear seats with the car key to stop them being folded down. And then you have storage containers behind them, which are sort of, I guess, like a safe because you can lock stuff in.
Correct, yeah, because, Gladiator is the only open-air pickup truck in the market. And when you've got a vehicle you can take off the doors and take off the top, it leaves you wanting space to secure your valuables. If you're out hiking or kayaking, you're probably going to want to leave things like your wallet and your phone behind. We've got tons of lockable storage on Gladiator. We've got standard locking storage behind the rear seat, and we've also got an available locking storage bin underneath the seat as well.
Can you remove one of those? I think that was one of the features, isn't it? You can take one of them out, like the ones that are under the seat. You can take it away with you.
Correct. Yeah. So the available lockable bin is actually held to the floor with 4 bolts, and you just take out those 4 bolts that are located inside the bin, and then the whole bin comes out. And we actually designed the carrying handle right into the bin just to make removal and installation very easy. And we even include a Torx kit, a little tool kit in every single Gladiator with a socket and some Torx bits to not only take out that bin, but also take off the doors and the top and fold down the windshield too.
Yeah, doors and windshield off. That's definitely a Texas outdoor weekend. The tech's great. You have the big Uconnect screen on the inside. You have all that tech inside the vehicle. Engine-wise, I know there's a diesel coming, right? But currently you have what's being offered and what's coming. So what's now and what's in the future?
So for the first model year for 2020, we are going to have standard on every Gladiator our 3.6-liter V6, and that can be paired with either a 6-speed manual or the 8-speed automatic. My personal favorite is the 6-speed manual. It's just a heck of a lot of fun to drive, rolling through the gears. And then next year in 2020, we're going to have available the 3-liter Eco Diesel paired with the 8-speed automatic. So not only will you be able to get a Jeep truck, but also a truck with a diesel, which our enthusiasts, I think, are just going to go crazy for.
What about the hybrid, Brandon?
No plans right now. Just the 3.6 and the diesel.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't beating you up. Where can people find out more?
They can go to Jeep.com.
Don't go away. There's more to come with Nik Miles. Our auto expert will be right back. He's Nik Miles, and this is Our Auto Expert.
Now, sometimes I get accused of overloading the show with too much Britishness, and today is going to be it's going to be that kind of show, I'm afraid, Megan. Are you sure you can handle more Britishness?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
You're used to it by now, aren't you?
Could we have like a dedicated Texas show?
No, every time you're on is a dedicated Texas show.
I know, right? Bring it up like 10 times.
When I told you this next guest was going to be on, you said you really like VW Golfs.
Yeah, you know what? I just like Volkswagen.
Mark Gillies from Volkswagen, who is a fellow Englishman, would love to hear that. How better could your show interview be going than the co-host is already a Volkswagen fan, Mark?
That's great news. Yeah, I like that.
And Mark will be happy to get your son into a Volkswagen. He's good like that.
Yeah. Well, I told you I was looking at the Jetta for Eden.
Oh, yeah, for your daughter.
Yep.
I remember a lot of girls in college had Jettas. It was the college girl car to drive, and the boys had Golfs.
When I was going into college, they had just brought back the Beetle back in like 1998.
Oh, I was 2000. Yeah, all right.
So that was a lot of people were in Beetles.
1968. You went to college? Huh?
No, that was you.
Mark, celebrating 45 years of the Golf. That's quite. We always think we think of the Beetle as the sort of the famous long-term VW, but Golf's been around probably a lot longer than most of our listeners.
It's been almost as long as I have, actually. It's everybody forgets that. First one was produced in March 1974. We've now sold over 35 million in 7 generations. And one of my favourite little fun facts is that a Golf has been ordered somewhere in the world every 41 seconds every day without interruption for 45 years.
Wow.
So gives you an idea of how many have rolled down production lines in Puebla and Wolfsburg and even back in the day in Westmoreland in the States.
Wow. So it was made for the States. It was made in the States for a short time then.
It was made, when it first appeared in the States, it actually came out of the Westmoreland factory. And, they actually did some wacky things, like they produced a pickup version of it out of that factory. But it only lasted for the Mark 1.
That's interesting. I remember when you rolled out, must be 2 generations ago, you brought all 7 generations of the Golf together, and we got to drive some of them, some different generations of them. And actually, it's really maintained true to its styling from the very first one. The Golf still looks like a Golf, whereas you can't, the Beetle still looks like a Beetle, but there's a lot of cars that don't look anything like they did when they were in their first generation. So the design language has portrayed itself across generations, hasn't it?
It has. If you look at other cars like Corollas, the Toyota Corollas that have been around for a long time, they're obviously completely different. But what we call the hockey stick, which is that rear pillar, is a very distinctive feature on a Golf, and it's been maintained all the way through the first 7 generations. So, first car, a lot of people don't realise this, was designed by Giorgetto Giugiaro, famous Italian designer from Ital Design, who also did cars like the Mangusta, for instance, when he was at Ghia. So, it was designed by probably one of the greatest car designers of all time in Giugiaro.
Ital Design have done some amazing cars too. Even some of the new ones that they're working on get me excited. It's a car company that have prolonged itself. Or a design company. Let's talk a little bit about the Golf's, what the Golf's famous for, because it was really probably the original hot hatch. Was there another hot hatch that has the longevity of the Golf?
No, I think if you look at the GTI, it's pretty much the granddaddy of the hot hatch brigade. And the first one came out, had a little bit more horsepower, sporty suspension, and GTI to me is like just such an iconic car. It's a great part of our history, but it's a great part of motoring history as well, because it after that you've got things like the Peugeot 205 in Europe, and pretty much every Honda Civic Si, all of those cars really owe their genesis back to the Golf. A very simple formula: take a regular car, bit more pep, proper gearbox, suspension tuning, a few exterior changes, and you've got a car that could go and frighten people, in much more powerful, more expensive machinery.
It makes me smile when you say frighten people, because I think that's what I did to my mum the last time I gave her a ride in the GTI. She was like, slow down. One of the things that the GTI is sort of super famous for too is it sort of didn't beat your wallet up when you bought one either. I harken back to some of the vehicles that aren't, hot hatches anymore. They've become hot sedans. But $70,000 isn't much to spend for something that's sort of souped up. But the GTI has always been sort of a reasonable price tag as well.
Yeah, I think so. If you look at the current car, it's priced, I think the base price is about 28 grand. And, when you look at what you get in terms of performance and equipment and all that kind of stuff, to me, it's a really good deal. Obviously I'm a Volkswagen guy, so I'm going to say that. But, to me, a lot of the value in the car market is in the sort of compact area. There's a huge amount of engineering goes into the cars, and you don't really get a lot more, excuse me, when, you go and buy a car with a fancy badge on the front, basically. You're buying some accoutrements and a fancy badge, but in terms of say, performance and the level of equipment you get on a car for, $35,000 these days. It's pretty impressive.
Now, what's the future of the Golf? Because currently the Beetle is being rested. We're not sure what the future of that is, but the Golf seems to be quite popular in many parts of the world still.
Oh, it's hugely popular. I mean, it's kind of the soul of the Volkswagen brand, I think, if you think about it. So there will be a Mark 8 version of the Golf coming out. We haven't announced exactly when it'll be, but it's not going to be far away. You'll see a new version of the Golf pretty soon, and pretty soon after that, you'll be seeing new versions of the Golf GTI and the Golf R. So the car, it's got a long way to go yet.
I think the Golf R, just to show how fanatical people are, I did a review of that probably 7 years ago, and it still ranks in the top 20 of all my YouTube videos ever with, I think, a couple 100,000 views. It's very, very popular. People seem to like the Golf Rs as well, even if they can't afford one, because obviously it's highly engineered. It still seems to be one of the most popular cars. Where else in the world is the Golf sort of the big hit apart from Europe and the United States? So there are countries in which the Golf is kind of the core of the community?
No, I don't know if it's core of the community, but I'd say, in terms of enthusiasts, you just have to look around the world. It was funny, I was in South Africa over Thanksgiving last year, playing boy races with an old race car, and I couldn't believe the number of Mark 1 GTIs and Mark 1 Golfs floating around East London.
Mark Gillies, always a pleasure to talk to you on Our Auto Expert. If you want to see the latest offerings from VW, go to their website and price yourself. I like to sometimes just go there and build cars. I have no intention of buying them. I'm just wasting my own time.
More of Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles is on the way. Welcome to the Fast Lane. Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles continues.
Bumper show today. We're covering everything. We didn't have a motorcycle segment. I guess we should do that. We are talking to David Lee. We've been talking about the new all-wheel drive Prius, and now let's turn our sights to a vehicle which I really love. Not that I don't love the all-wheel drive. I love the RAV4. I
didn't know that.
The new RAV4. I think
what is it that you love so much?
It'll be the best-selling vehicle in its class.
It is leagues, and it's like they threw the old RAV4 way in the trash, and they were like, "We need a brand new car."
Well, I drove
so
it.
Beautiful, so much
you
nicer.
You did, nice. David, is that right? Is it going to be the best-selling vehicle in best-selling vehicle in its class next year?
No pressure.
Best-selling SUV? No pressure. Yeah.
No pressure, right? Yeah, actually, gang, it has been the best-selling vehicle in its class for a bit nationally, and last year it became the best-selling Toyota product nationally in the U.S., but once again, in our area here where I'm currently working, it's been our bestseller for quite some time, actually.
I have to tell you,
anticipate success.
My things that are favorite about the Toyota that they're doing right now, and I just bought a new Lexus GX, so I'm in the family. But the thing I really like,
Toyota.
What, Lexus is anti-Toyota?
Well, it's not Toyota.
Yes, it is. Who owns Lexus?
Oh, okay. It's not Toyota, though. No. You know what I mean, David? David knows what I mean.
No, it's upper class Toyota. So
I like that.
It's royalty. It's the royalty of Toyota. So I love what Toyota are doing with design. So one of the things is it's never been a fulfilling design company. They've never really tried to make vehicles that were outstanding. And then last year, you guys came out with that sand color in your trucks. I love that color. Quicksand, was it called?
Yeah. Desert sand, quicksand, something to that effect.
Yeah. So I love that color. And then this year, as if they could do anything more, you guys came out with that concrete gray color.
And that blue.
The gray blue. So you had that light blue in the light gray blue in the Tacoma that I had. And then that orange.
That's what I have.
Right? And the orange on the inside of the RAV4. So I had it in that concrete bluey color and then the orange on the interior. Oh, I want that car so badly.
Have you seen the new blue that they have?
Which is
it's like that brand new bright blue. Yeah.
That was on the Tacoma TRD,
right? Tundra and the Tacoma and the 4Runner. It's all
Well, there was a new color on the RAV4 that I drove out there, and I can't remember what it was called. It's kind of a greenish, frosted.
Yeah, that's our lunar was it lunar something or other? Forgive me, colors is like the worst part of my expertise.
I will tell you, like colors, you definitely that interior, the orange. A lot of times, so I really like the new Hyundai Kona, which I've been driving, and they came out with that lime twist, that bright lime color, like Ryan's headphones. Not that anybody can see that apart from me, but that sort of lime twist color.
Who's Ryan?
And then they came up with several other really bright colors, which I don't think I could have on a regular basis in my driveway. I like the look of these cars. I could see them on a showroom floor, but I'm not sure I'd want to open my kitchen blinds and see it every day. Like this lime, bright. But yet the new Toyota colors are subtle enough that they look really, really cool. And I could probably live in them on a day-to-day basis. So not that color is why people buy cars, maybe except for me, because I'm kind of weird. But people are buying the RAV4 just purely because of its capability, right?
Yeah. Real quick, too, that color is lunar rock, Megan. That was the stuff that we were talking about. And, Nick, if you want that orange interior, you want to get yourself an adventure grade, because that is the one that has that orange trim.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, but for capabilities, really, that's where I think RAV has become a hit with the market. As the market has shifted away from passenger cars, we saw it overtake Camry at the end of 2018 in sales and outsold it by about 20,000 units. And we're seeing now that lead continue to expand. It really is about the right size, configurability of the interior, performance. As you said before, too, the previous generation did not have the acceleration and handling as the current vehicle. So you get a lot of that same good utility, but now you've got some performance, too, I think.
I was seriously trying to find things wrong with it. Like when I had the car to test drive and we shot the video, I was trying to find things that were wrong with it, and it was hard. I mean, I really had to be picky. And to be honest with you, none of them would have stopped me buying it because I would buy it anyway. But it was hard to find anything that, the styling on the exterior is really great. The roominess, the seats are comfortable, the electronics, Safety Sense 2.0, right? This is the first SUV to get that?
It's not our first SUV, but it is something now that's become prevalent. Wait a second, for 2.0...
I'm trying to think if there's another one. I can't think. So it came in the Corolla hatchback and the Avalon. The Corolla hatchback, not the Avalon.
Nope.
And then I think this is the second vehicle released since the Corolla hatchback.
It is. I stand corrected. You're on that. Yes, it is our first SUV to have the 2.0 version of TSS. Yes, it is.
And you guys added a lot more stuff to it, right? The panoramic sunroof, the rear vented seats, heated steering wheel.
A lot of. Yes, some new technology. I think much better driver visibility, frankly, just on the structure of the car. And then the cameras have been improved. The TSS 2.0 really helps. I can't wait. I get a car every 6 months. I have a summer and a winter car, and I'm going to get an XSE hybrid for this winter. I live up in the Rockies, and I'm going to take advantage.
I would do, too, because I think, Megan, did you enjoy driving it on ice?
I did, yeah.
And did it stop well?
It did. It stopped really well. I mean, it just handles really well. It's funny, though, because during the briefing that they gave us, he mentioned that you wouldn't necessarily have off-roaded last year's RAV4 Adventure, but this one you could.
Right.
I totally off-roaded the one last year, and it did fine.
Did you tell Toyota when you borrowed it you were off-roading
it? Don't tell us.
Just kidding.
And now, so what is the starting price of this? Because they're fairly reasonable if I look at the base model.
Yeah, if you go front wheel drive, they're down in the 20s, and then of course they go up as you go into all wheel drive and then into hybrids. But an LE front wheel driver starts at 25.5, and then they go up from there. They top out at about 40, just under.
And that's pretty packed with all the latest technology.
Yeah, we try to offer, when we have a popular product like this, we do it with Camry also, right? We'll offer a wide palette of standard equipment and features to offer it up to a lot of market segments. It's our intention to have a broad appeal here.
What's the secret to Toyota? Because I purely bought my GX for the reason that I wanted it to last. I wanted to be able to start it every single time and it wouldn't have an issue. I wanted to be able to sort of get in the garage after 6 months and you pile the dogs in the back and go to the dog park in the snow, and it would start every time. And that's something Toyota have been super, super famous for. We never suggest this, but you could almost go and not change your oil for 100,000 miles and it would still start every time, right?
Yeah, obviously, I from my seat, I can't assume that, but I can tell you this: our what we call quality, durability, reliability, or QDR is probably our number one buyer motivation in most segments. Our car buyers look at it just kind of how you said it, Nick, where they want to be able to buy their passenger car and have it for a couple 100,000 miles and do nothing but maintenance. It's funny, though, you start getting into our truck owners like Tacoma and Tundra. The Tundra owner wants capability, towing and hauling and stuff with that reliability. But a Tacoma owner who's more of an adventuresome driver, they want their vehicle to get them there and back. And frankly, the number of miles they have on it is not that important. It's the factor that it will get there and back that's more important. So it changes.
Yeah, and when I bought my vehicle, it had more miles on it than I was looking for a vehicle under a certain amount of miles because it wasn't brand new. And the dealer told me, well, I actually have one of these, and mine has 300,000 miles on it. So he said I wouldn't get too excited about it. Which is great to hear a car can go that far, but that's one of the things I always loved about these vehicles. That's why I think, Ryan, you've had 3 or 4 Toyotas, haven't you?
This is the first Mercedes I've ever had.
Right, and you've had Toyotas before.
And I'm getting rid of it to go get a Toyota.
Are you going back to Toyota?
Just kidding, I'm getting a Wrangler.
That's funny. All right, so the RAV4 is on sale right now, and we talked about a little bit about availability. So all the different models are out there, including a hybrid, right?
Yeah, our hybrids have just been hitting the ground here into last month, into this month. I'm out where I'm at. I'm still talking to some stores that don't have them, and I'm talking to some that are just getting them. And initially, when they're getting them in, they're selling quickly, but that's to be expected with a brand new product. But yeah, everything should be available now.
And what was the fuel economy on the hybrid? Because I remember reading that and going, what?
Ooh, yes. In fact, this is one where it's drastically different than the gas models.
Yeah, I think it was like 40 miles a gallon, 37 miles a gallon or something. David, we got to take a quick commercial break. We're going to do that. Thanks for joining us. You can find out more about the RAV4 and the Prius all-wheel drive by going to Toyota's website, toyota.com, or ourautoexpert.com.
More of Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles is on the way. He's Nik Miles, and this is Our Auto Expert.
Now, we invite him on the show every single week. He is our independent analyst and investor, Anton Walhman, joining us. Anton, you sent me a chart this week, which is very interesting, about 3-row vehicle sales. And there's quite a lot in different layers about these. If you look at, there's a few, at least 3, maybe 4 new entries into the market.
Yeah, so in the U.S. today, which is almost a 17 million unit market, about 2 million of them are 3-row SUVs. These are really the largest class of SUVs that are out there. Some are body-on-frame, some are unibody. And this market, as we break down the sales this year, particularly here in the month of March, from which we have our very latest data, those numbers are up about 13%, and being up 13% this year when the overall market is taking about a 2 or 3% beating is actually quite fantastic. So digging deeper into the numbers, I saw that almost the entire increase here is actually caused by just 3 all-new models that weren't even in the market a year ago. So those 3 vehicles are the Subaru Ascent, the BMW X7, and finally the Kia Telluride. These 3 vehicles are brand new for this March. We're not around March a year ago, and they contributed significantly to the growth in this segment. And, of course, when it comes to Subaru, this brand has had no shortage of success over the last decade in the United States. They've had 88 months of consecutive sales increases, and when they came out with their first really proper 3-row SUV here recently, middle of 2018, there was almost no doubt that this vehicle would be a tremendous success. So no surprise it has risen to one of the top spots here. They're actually the 6th best-selling 3-row SUV here in March. And then when it comes to BMW, as you may know, Mercedes has had that segment essentially by itself with the GLS, the 3-row there that had no real counterpart on the BMW side. So with the BMW out here, it's clear that it would do well. But then we have the Kia Telluride. And Kia, of course, it was not obvious to most people that Kia would really do well as it brought out a far more larger and more stately, more square, more expensive, almost dare I say, a Range Rover look-alike three-row SUV. And it turns out that it looks like they've done fantastically well here in March. They sold over 5,000 of them, and that puts them in 12th place. That's ahead of such stalwarts as the GMC Yukon, the Infiniti QX60, the Nissan Armada, Buick Enclave, the Acura MDX, Volvo XC90, and a few others. So that's a very solid start for Kia here, and I think that bodes well for that brand here in the U.S. for the rest of the year.
There is some interesting glaring information here, too. Disappointed to see at the very bottom of the table, 25th, the Land Rover Discovery. That seemed to be such a opportunistic vehicle. It is up 14%, but they really aren't selling huge amounts of them.
No, and keep in mind, though, that if you look at where that vehicle starts in terms of price, I believe it starts around $53,000, and of course the options list on a Land Rover tends to be a little bit more interesting and generous than most of the sort of Japanese and Korean and other lower priced vehicles. So when you're looking at the cost of these vehicles and their cost to insure them and the fuel economy and so forth, I don't think that it's entirely unsurprising to find the Land Rover closer to the bottom, because it is a more expensive vehicle to purchase and to own than some of these other ones. I mean, if you look at the segment's best sellers, clearly the Toyota Highlander, the Ford Explorer, the Honda Pilot, and Chevy Traverse are the best sellers here. And these are all vehicles that tend to start barely above the $30,000, $31,000 or so mark before what can sometimes be pretty generous dealer incentives.
So if we look at these numbers for sales and we start to look down, Megan gets very excited when she sees number 11, which is the Dodge Durango, which is the one you wanted, isn't it, Megan?
I want the Dodge Durango SRT.
Oh, I bet you do.
I got to test drive it just for a few days. I got to say, that is a sexy car. Like, I have never felt sexier driving a car than I did in the Dodge Durango SRT. I mean, like, the power in that car.
And that's probably exactly the opposite of Anton, I'll tell you, because it makes no sense whatsoever, right, Anton? It's just purely a heart-throbbing car and doesn't make any financial sense to buy something that good.
But
well, let's put it this way. I'm on two minds about the Dodge Durango. Actually, the base versions.
All right, Anton Walhman, our independent investor and analyst seeking alpha, is where you can read a lot of his stuff. He'll be back in a moment. I want to talk a little bit about the tragic accident of a family going off a cliff in their minivan, which was reported this week, in which they all passed away. But we discovered in the investigation of that they got all the data from the crash out of the black box. Who knew cars had black boxes? We'll talk about that a little bit when we come back.
More of Our Auto Expert with Nik Miles is coming up. He's Nik Miles, and this is Our Auto Expert.
Welcome back to the show. Anton Walhman with us. He is our independent analyst and investor. We're talking about cars. So the tragic report of the Hart family who went off the cliff in California and unfortunately perished, all 8 members of the family. But the interesting thing to come out of this was when the California Highway Patrol and agencies did research into the accident, they got a lot of their data, not only from the cell phones of the individuals in the car, but from a black box, which happened to be in this minivan. And that spawned the question around the newsroom here, is black boxes in minivans? Many people didn't know they existed, and many people didn't know that your vehicle records information about it. Megan's pointing to herself at this point.
Is there a black box in my minivan?
Well, it's a 2007, so maybe not. But Anton, black boxes are not an unusual item to have in vehicles anymore, are they?
No, they're not. And there are, of course, very different degrees of this type of machinery that can go into a vehicle. At the most minimal scenario, you have a little black box that records, data that is, happening before, say, a little crash. And then if there is a crash, you can physically remove this black box and then analyze it. And that is, often what happens in terms of an accident. You go and look there and say, well, did the driver brake? Was there any, harsh steering input? Was there a sudden acceleration? To look at all of those things. So that's one type of monitoring. But then you have this active monitoring that is now looking to become more and more prevalent in at least some cars, and certainly if you look down the road here over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, is going to apparently become far more prevalent in automobiles, and that is that even though there's no accident whatsoever, the car will record data and then send this data up, sometimes in real time, sometimes in batches, maybe with the seconds, hours, days, minutes after this has occurred, and then God knows what happens with this data. Even though you may have done nothing wrong, somebody or some computer somewhere will analyze all of this, and typically this is all done for innocent purposes or good purposes. Well, we want to make sure that this person would analyze how they drive so that we can better teach the car to do this or that, or teach a self-driving program to emulate the driver, as if many drivers should be emulated, right? But then that does not really close the question of what happens if the purpose of collecting this data shifts. I mean, we can count and keep track of people in all sorts of ways. We can implant a chip in them to make sure that they walk straight or, walk while they're not drunk or all of these things. But what if the government suddenly turns on you, either the government or the company that collects this data, or the government ordering the company that collects all of this data to deliver the information to them for not so benign purposes? And that's where you have to look a little bit beyond the bend here and see, well, surely if all data is collected for the most benign purposes, then, well, maybe a few lives here and there can be saved. But if, and that's a big, big if, this data is really collected only for these benign purposes, and what if that assumption changes one of these days?
Yeah, maybe we need to have a law out there that exists that says if you change the use of any data that you've collected, you automatically have to destroy it. So it has to be laid out.
That could very well be, but how do you then enforce that? I mean, let's say we always have like the dictator problem, right? You can say, well, all of these things in society that are maybe well-meaning in terms of what you can't or shouldn't do or what's possible to do, and all of these things sound very well if you just assume that there is some benign entity at the other end of the wire or maybe the hard drive. But what if, the proverbial dictator regime in country XYZ, can you imagine what little Kim or somebody else were to do with the data if they got their hands on it? And that's, once the data has been collected and is stored somewhere, if there's a law that says that, well, you have to destroy this data, well, what if they just nullify that law and said, well, you know what, this whole idea about not using this data, let's forget about that. I'll take that data anyway. Thank you. Then what happens? So it's very hard to put the mayo back in the tube if this data has once been collected. And I just think that there will be a market here in some point in the coming years for an automaker to come out and say, look, we don't collect any data, we don't transmit any data, and the car doesn't receive any data either. And for good or for bad or for worse, we actually don't have a link between this automobile and the outer world, and that is an option for you if you don't believe or you don't trust or you otherwise don't want this data to be collected, even though the stated purposes today are very much benign.
I don't trust the government, so what I need to know is how to get that black box out of my car.
Yeah, will you be able to?
Yeah, that's the tough part. The problem with some of these electronics is that once they put them in, it's almost not optional for the end user to realistically remove them. So I think that, so far, I think consumer awareness has been very poor in terms of these things existing or what they really do or can't do. But that probably won't last forever. So at some point, we will probably see some examples, maybe not from inside the United States, but maybe from some regime. Putin targeted his little, regime critics by, remotely sending people over the cliff, some of these examples. And then at some point, an automaker might say, you know what, maybe I can make some extra money here by offering a no-cost option. Let's call it the no-connectivity option, is that this car doesn't collect any data, it doesn't send any data out of the car, and it doesn't receive any incoming commands from data from the outer world either. And therefore, you have a privacy car. At that point, I don't know what percentage of people would want a car like that.
I would pay for that.
A small percentage.
Megan's already busting out a checkbook. She's got a checkbook out right now on the desk.
I think the entire state of Texas would pay for that.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of leaning toward the notion, too, that it's probably a healthy percentage. I say let the free market decide at that point. Let the automakers offer it, and let's just see where, let the chips fall where they may, and let's see how many people are interested in that. And I think any automaker that doesn't offer this is pretty stupid. And I think that any automaker that is not right now, as we speak, already working on trying to come up with an offering of this nature is really missing out on a big opportunity. Just like Toyota became associated with hybrids by coming out with the Prius almost 20 years ago for the first time. Any automaker that comes out with this first and gets associated with it first may get a leg up on the competition and could really be associated with being the privacy car. If I were head of product planning for an automaker, I would totally jump out for this. It doesn't really cost anything if you think about it. Many options, many fancy things. We can't offer this because it increases the cost of the vehicle, and that's obviously understandable. You don't want to offer something where people have to pay more for something, but here you're taking maybe a $50 modem out of the car. So actually the cost of the vehicle might have gone down by the cost of a dinner for two. Or maybe you just offer it as a no-cost option, saying, hey, you can buy this XYZ car with or without collecting, sending, or transmitting data. Your choice, and let's see what happens.
Now, I don't want the government tracking me or the car company, but then I love the Chevy technology where I can track my teenager.
Wait, she's good.
Yes.
What's good for the goose is not good for the gander.
Yes. Exactly. I think that's always a good point. We always want to make sure that we can view into other people's lives, read other people's tax returns, read all their emails, and hack into their data. But God forbid it's the other way around. That is the eternal dilemma.
I will tell you, Anton, I was highly disappointed at CES during the Byton presentation, in which they went through so much, this Chinese car company, autonomous electric car, they went through so much about how advanced this vehicle was and how all the data of the cameras inside and outside the vehicle will be collected, but it will be on these massive secure servers that nobody would have ever been able to access. And then you found out two things. A, the servers were in China, and B, the company is partially owned by the Chinese military. So ultimately, it's the intention of the individual company, right?
Yeah, of course. No, I mean, these things are, it's a huge honeypot if you think about it. I mean, if you look at what is a vehicle really but a large rolling sensor that drives around on the streets, basically can have cameras that can record everything around the vehicle. It could certainly have microphones recording the voices of everybody not only inside the vehicle, but also within earshot outside of the vehicle. So, imagine just from a national security standpoint of any vehicle that's driving around near, let's say, a military base or somebody who works at a military base. So it's just walking around having a conversation with somebody, and then a vehicle just drives right by on the street and is able to essentially listen to this conversation. I mean, the national security implications for the data collection abilities by these sensors, both cameras and voice recording of vehicles going forward, is just absolutely massive.
If it makes you feel any better, your phone's already recording you. So.
Yeah. Megan's now
no, but that's my
panicking.
point. I mean, think
corner.
about this. Look at how we don't allow Chinese companies now to Huawei, ZTE, whatever, to install telecom equipment among the large carriers in the United States. AT&T, Verizon. I mean, AT&T and Verizon, they've essentially stopped offering Chinese phones. I mean, people are so afraid of what is really going on in these things that this is becoming one of the most severest form of national security issues around, and it has not yet reached the debate what this means in terms of the automobile, but believe me, it is coming, and you pointed out, Nick, the exact good example here, which is kind of the scenario that Byton has laid out, and I think that this is going to be a source of a very robust debate over the next couple of years.
This is one of the reasons that car companies at some point refused to have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto in their vehicles, because the phone is just yet another accessory that can record information that's going on in the car and pass it back to a third party, right?
Yeah, well, I think here the car companies were very suspicious of Apple and Google here in terms of what was going to happen, but I think they actually came up with a pretty elegant solution, and that is that it really is you already bring your phone into the car anyway, and you have a choice to turn off your phone any time, which is why this thing, I mean, you know, the phone doesn't drive you around, right? As you can, and if we enter World War III or whatever, you can literally turn off your phone if you wanted. This thing will not bring you any harm. But when you plug the phone here into your car, what Android Auto and Apple CarPlay do, it's really the only service, like it's like adding a monitor to your PC. It just brings up the ability for you to see a subset of what goes on your phone in a way that essentially just makes you a safer driver, which is you don't hold this small screen in your hand and look to the side, but rather you can look up on a screen which is far more ergonomic and better suited to interact with while you're actually driving the vehicle. So I think that they actually got over some of those concerns, and that's why all the automakers have now embraced it, or at least was a way for them to end up embracing Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as a solution that they all favor now.
I swear you just gave me a reason why I now love my minivan, because apparently there's no black box in it.
Yeah, I think Chevrolet, I talked to a journalist who was pretty surprised. He did an interview with Chevrolet, and he had been driving a Chevrolet car, and during the interview, the person he was talking to was bringing up his driving habits in the car for that week. And, you know, he had 4 instances of hard braking, 1 acceleration, etc. So those are the things the car companies, of course, insurance companies have always been looking at that, and they want you to agree to have a black box inside of your car as well, so they can make sure that you're a good driver. Because let's be honest with you, if you're a bad driver, the last thing you want to do is share that information. We're all relatively aware.
Everyone thinks they're a good driver, though. That's the problem.
Well, of course, 80% of people think it's everyone else that is the bad drivers in the world. That was a study from Volvo, by the way. Anton, I would say that I have a friend that works in the NSA, and I asked him directly. I said, are you recording my phone conversations? And he said, if you think we're interested in you, it's a 0. We haven't got time to be bothered. There's algorithms that check all those things. We know who we're interested in, and I can assure you, you're not on the list. So that got me off the list. But however, Anton, you may be on the list.
Yeah, we all are after this conversation.
I was
going to say, we're none of us is on that list until we are.
Right.
That's the simple fact. None of us is on the list until somebody says, well, maybe, just maybe. So that's the problem.
We've managed to freak out the entire radio audience. All right, you're listening to Our Auto Expert. The podcast is at ourautoexpert.com, as well as all the latest articles and information. You can go see some of our TV videos. Please go friend us on all the social medias. We'd like to be your friend, and we'll feed you conspiracy theories as Megan chokes to death in the side of the studio. Coming up, there's more great stuff on this radio station, and don't forget to listen to our podcast.